get out a pen and paper and write this down. Or a pencil. Why don't you send some physical mail to the Grimerica show? At P.O. Box 16033. Next line. 100-815, comma, 17th Avenue, SW. Next line. Calgary, Alberta. Next line. Canada. Next line. T2T space 5H7. That's the P.O. Box. Why don't you send Darren some dirty socks? Cause he's got a dirty sock fetish. Why don't you send Graham some gold bullion? Cause he's got a gold bullion fetish. Send him some gold. Send him some gold. Send him some gold in the P.O. Box. P.O. Box. P.O. Box. A get physical. A get physical. A get physical. Everybody loves to get physical and get physical mail in the mailbox. So send them.
I think they're very cognizant of this material. That this is one of the arguments against this is you will constantly hear thrown around as, oh, these guys had no knowledge of this. You know, this is bull. These guys are very well in tuned to this material.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We are going to be chatting with the one and only Robert W. Sullivan IV a little bit later. One of the few people who got to come back for a third time in Grimerica. Mostly because he emails an ass. If everyone else emailed an ass, anyone can come on the show. But Sully remembers us. I like that. I like that he keeps us in line when his new book comes out.
Yeah. And it's always full of good and we're right in the Hollywood groove as well, talking about that stuff. So it's a very appropriate, and it's fun to talk to him about it.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to go back and check out some of his other episodes. We had him on twice. The first one, we really get into the Masonic stuff. I think we probably did repeat ourselves a bit on that one.
No, this one I think we were a little bit more we were a little bit more.
It's hard to tell sometimes.
We asked him
especially
some
when
questions.
it's been like that other one. It's been 4 years since we did that interview. It's hard to remember, and I didn't listen to it. Well, I meant to listen to them, but I can't stand listening to you.
I can't stand listening to me either.
I guess you. Anyway, yeah, he's coming out. We're going to talk about his new book, Cinema Symbolism 2.
And we get into Freemason stuff as well. We ask him about that. He's pretty candid. He's open about it. It's pretty cool.
Of course, that there, folks, is the one and only Graham Dunlop. Graham, the Enigma Dunlop.
Thanks, buddy.
How's it going, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Well, not too bad. I got him a new monitor. Cleaned up the studio a bit. Got a new shelf. That was nice.
Yeah, it looks way better in here. Looks bigger.
We might have talked about that already, but I can't remember.
Probably. So, I mean, we do have lots of content here. We're just trying to find the time to release it. So hopefully you'll see some more episodes coming out. We planned on getting more out before this one, but it just didn't happen. So
it's getting the intros.
Soon, yeah. Yeah. Well, we can cut a couple of these short maybe too, but
people get upset.
Come with some blowback.
Yeah, comes with blowback. No, I think I'm out of town this weekend, and then things are going to start to settle down for the winter. Time to settle in.
Yeah.
So that's when I think we should probably be able to plow. I mean, we're sitting on a lot of interviews right now. Well, I think the Matheson one we can probably pop out with a little 5-minute intro.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
That's been available on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I mean, if you're jonesing for content, check out the YouTube channel. The interview with Dave Matheson's there already. We did a bunch of video with some visuals. It's great. Graham will link to it.
That's about the star myths.
Mm-hmm. Which will come out. I think we'll just, since that's highly video based, I think we'll just do like a 5-minute intro for that one and then drop it as like a bonus app type thing.
Exactly.
And, but yeah, I highly recommend, if you've got the ability to check out the YouTube channel, we're able to get it with a little picture of the studio, a little picture of Dave, and then a big picture of what he was presenting. I was playing around a little bit with the different, I was playing, what's the word, like TV producer, or not producer, who's the guy in the
editor,
controller,
the control room?
The controller. I'm the guy in the control room. That was like camera 2, camera on. I only had 2 cameras. I was just talking to myself. So.
How'd it go? Were you answering too?
I don't know. I haven't watched the video. I think it went okay. What I would do is if we were really talking
I meant the conversation with yourself.
No,
answering as well?
It's a mess. It's mostly a mess, yeah. Well, it's mostly myself agreeing with myself that other people are idiots. I was listening to the latest THC. I don't know if it's the latest, but I was listening to one today, like yelling. I'm like this far away from like texting Carl with him, being like, he'd almost like blaming him. It was the flat Earth guy.
Oh, wow.
And I like the one flat Earth guy. I forget his name, Eric Dubai or whatever. Because at least he comes with a little more knowledge, I think. I find these flat Earth guys, some of the arguments are just a little too silly. And then I can't. Once that happens one time, then I have trouble. But Eric Dubai, I can, sometimes he can, I'm on board with him sometimes. He's like, yeah, you're right. You're fucking crazy, but you're right.
In what regard? Explain a little bit more if you could.
Like, well, I think the one that got me today was when he was talking about how come a helium balloon filled with helium doesn't just fall to the ground because of gravity. And it's like, well, nowhere in any sort of understanding of gravity or weight or air pressure or any of those things should that happen.
Isn't it lighter than air?
It's lighter than air.
That's why. And
we're not in a vacuum. If we were in a vacuum, it quite possibly would. It's the helium that's lighter than air that presents the problem.
Oh, I see.
So if that's your argument, then I have a problem right out of the gate.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Eric Dubai's.
If you can't thought experiment your way around how that works or why that works, then...
Whose argument is this?
This is this other guy.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Anyway, we've spent too much time on the subject already. Yeah. What do you got? We'll get some blowback for that.
We do have a bunch of recommendations on flat Earth. Don't we have some people in the chats that are flat Earthers?
I think Jerry's a flat Earther. I wonder if
Jerry, teach us about the flat Earth.
I like Jerry a lot. Love the guy.
So do I.
I don't think there's flat. I wonder if Michael's a flat Earther. I've never outright asked him. But he seems like the type. He could be the first person I know in person. Why
don't we do a bonus episode with Jerry and Michael, and we'll have them in for the Black Budget where we get into it.
The flat Earth. If we do a flat Earth show for the Black Budget, so we can argue.
Yeah,
because that's the thing is if I have a flat Earther and I'm not going to be able to just shut up.
Well, let's do it. So we'll get into a debate. And I don't want to
throw up an argument into a regular feed because that's not what we do here.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, fine. Begrudgingly.
So
speaking of the Black Budget, jinx. Don't point at me. Speaking of the Black Budget, guys, we did just drop a new episode in there. We talked about Disney and occult and Illuminati and all sorts of fun stuff like that.
Addiction treatment centers in Delray, Florida. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we had a great chat with Salvatore Antithesis. It's an awesome one. Check it out. A lot of people like that. If you're not in the Black Budget feed, check out grimerica.ca/support today and sign up for a monthly or send a one-time donation our way so we can send that link back your way.
Yeah, anything gets you the link.
Anything. Just send us some money so we can eat some food and we'll give you the link. And of course, I think Mr. Grimsteak of Cruising with Steak, great podcast over there. Check that shit out, guys. It's a good one. It's even more casual than this.
What was the point about Cruising with Steak?
He's working on psilocybus too.
Oh, geez, yeah, that might not be salvageable. So we did the mushroom episode in the cab. I don't know if
the mushroom episode.
Something might not be better than nothing on this. Something might just be worse.
You guys let us know if you think something's better than nothing. Because Grimsteak's having trouble. I think we were banging on the table a little bit too much. He's like, it sounds like someone's playing drums on the mic.
Well, we probably were.
I might have been. But so we'll see what happens there. I mean, we might have to try again. What happened was I forgot the digital recorder at home and didn't realize it until I got to the cabin.
And you had fake news about stems being more potent than caps.
That's right. But I still ate a lot of stems.
Yeah, but the stems, I mean, that's just not...
Fuck, I was high.
Were you?
Well, I fucking lied on the ground, bawling my eyes out laughing.
You weren't too high enough to make fun of me, that's for sure. You were making fun of me, and I was thinking, he can't be that high if he's still making fun of me. You guys had your little inside jokes about me and the moon and stared up at the stars. So I thought, he can't be that high if he's still fucking worried about making fun of me.
True.
Yeah, that's what made me wonder.
I don't know why I would against myself. All my life I've known the caps are the best part.
I know. What the got talked into it?
Talked into eating a bunch of stems. But wait, I probably get 3.5 grams of stems. It was still a laugh.
Apparently that's more of a body high instead of a spiritual high. Somebody was explaining that balance is important between the two.
Really?
Yeah.
All I've left is caps.
Look out. You're going to leave your body next time. That'll be a good experiment, actually. And
Perfect.
just do
Yeah,
3.5 of caps and see how it goes.
Holy fuck. We'll have to do that in the cold at the cabin so that we can't leave the trailer.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have the ability to... It was tough. We only had one mic that only worked off a laptop because I forgot the digital recorder, the brand new digital recorder.
Yeah.
Never been used, brand new.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's the purpose of the go bag.
That's right. It wasn't in the go bag.
Oh, really?
I had taken it out because I was showing it off to someone and then I left it.
This is what I deal with here. Just like that postcard that sits in there for a week.
That's because fucking Joe Brick had to fucking be a funny guy. So now Joe Brick waits. I'll actually mail it. I'll try and mail it tomorrow.
Okay.
It's been a week. He's suffered enough. There's 2 stickers.
Joe Brick, your magnets are in the mail.
2 stickers and 3 magnets. I'll send them now. I forgive you, Joe Brick. All right. So check out grimerica.ca/support, guys. Sign up for a monthly if you can. It really does help a whole lot. Then we could use them more. Like I said before, I think we're still barely at 1% if we're at 1% for a support rate. I'd like to see that hit like 2 or 3, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
THC does 10.
Yeah. Yeah, but they have the trickier content where it's like they suck you into the second half of the show. We don't want to do that. We just ask for your support in more of a Canadian way.
Too much work.
A polite way. Like, come on, please.
All right, onward and upward.
So we do like it when we get listener feedback and stories and synchronicities and all that good stuff. I have a few to read.
Oh, can you do the one about the stuff? I keep forgetting to talk about that. Do you have that one? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
About sending in your junk?
No.
To the show instead of cash if you don't have cash?
It's supposed to be an email?
Yeah. You were talking about it to me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We fucking had a conversation about it. He was like, oh, maybe ask people to send you old audio cards or stuff like that. People might have a microphone or a monitor or whatever.
Oh, geez. I don't know where to find that. I'm not ready for that.
Okay. Anyway, it was
you could explain it.
It was a good point. Basically, the premise was that he had put out that, I have some old audio equipment here. I got a couple of old Shure SM58s. Do you want them? Or would, and
even if we didn't need them, we could
have them as a backup.
Sell them on Kijiji.
Oh, yeah. You had mentioned that even if people send you stuff and you don't need it, sell it on Kijiji for the value. But I mean, definitely old audio equipment. We would probably have some interesting XLR cords.
Yeah.
Old Shure microphones.
1/8 and 1/8 cords. I mean, those are always going.
We go through like crazy.
The adapters.
The 1/8 splitters we go through like crazy.
For some reason. Don't they make quality stuff anymore?
No, they don't. It's hard to find quality electronics these days. It really is. So if you have anything like that lying around, if you have something around and you're wondering if it's something the show needs, shoot me an email. And if we need it.
Yeah, we don't want to see like a whole bunch of like old value. Phone cords. And
yeah, we don't need fucking iPhone 4 chargers. But an idea, we could always use another monitor. You know what? Mr. Owl's got those fucking solid state hard drives. I just got to send him the model number of the computers.
Oh, cool.
But I don't know how to put
They're external or you don't want to be putting...
That's the problem.
They're internal?
I think
on
so.
A Mac?
And I don't think James can put it in.
I don't want to be messing around with that.
I haven't seen Mr. Al in the chats in a while. I hope he's okay.
So speaking of that, that's our perpetual chats, and the link is in the show notes. It's a Discord channel where everybody just hangs around there most of the day.
Stop on by, 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 stop on by. Head on over to the Grimerica chats.
Yoo-hoo! It is a yoo-hoo. It's a big yoo-hoo. Check it out, guys. Grimerica.ca/chats. I think we're up to like 200 and some people in there now. You definitely don't notice it. Some people are a lot more prevalent than others. I pop in once a day, at least, see what's going on. Usually in the morning, then again in the evening.
I try. I'm sucked into a separate channel for D&D right now.
And
so
I tend to post pictures of Graham that he doesn't know I take in there. So that's another little snippet from the chats.
I catch most of them, I think.
That one, yeah, I couldn't believe how fast you caught that one. I posted it like right away. You're like, fuck you. It was literally within like a second of me posting it.
Yeah, I just happened to be in there, and I saw a picture of me that was pretty creepy. I'm like, what the fuck? Plus, it was a fucking terrible picture of me, which made it worse.
They all are. That was the one where I tricked you into thinking I was showing you a picture.
Yeah.
But it was actually taking a picture of you. Yeah, check out the chats, guys. All sorts of fun stuff over there.
Okay, what do you want? I got a couple listener stories and synchronicities.
Ooh, let's go with...
I'm a rambling Graham with synchronicities all over the web. And Aaron is skeptical about everyone and don't believe it yet.
I think I turned that up a little too loud. Sorry, guys. Might have clipped.
So, okay, this is a synchronicity story from Peter. It's called Peter's Synchro Story. Hey, Darren and Graham, how you guys going? So you can tell right off the bat he's Aussie or something like that. First off, wicked show, my dudes. I found this rad show by typing occult, UFO.
Really?
In the podcast section in Spotify a few months back. That's really interesting because I tried searching that in the App Store and then nothing came up for our new app. But I'm surprised occult comes up because I want to do a little bit more on the occult.
I wonder if there's a way I can check how many people listen to the show on the app to find out if that whole debacle was worth it.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, it is good to find out from people how they found the show.
It's cool to have an app, though.
Marketing research.
It's cool to have an app.
Oh, come on. If it's not searchable, then what's the point? I thought it was a marketing thing for us.
So did I.
Okay, so Spotify, and I can see...
I tried to name it the Grimerica podcast app, but Apple won't let you. You can't have podcast in the title.
Really?
Yeah. So there goes all your fucking... No one's searching UFOs in the App Store. Maybe they are. You probably do.
But you can't... So if you search podcast in the app... Podcast in the app...
I don't know why you search that.
Podcast in the App Store?
Let's see what comes up. I think if you're not a podcast playing... Well, I guess... Well, that doesn't make sense either because we are a podcast playing app.
That's what I'm saying.
It only plays one podcast, so...
If you can't have an extended description on what our show's about or all that kind of stuff, what's the point?
That's why when you type in podcast, it's all just podcast players. There's not a single app in there.
That's really interesting. So maybe I was using that. So if I type in UFO and occult, let's see what happens there.
In the App Store?
Yeah. Oh boy. 3 apps come up.
Is ours one of them?
No, not even close.
Oh, you know why? Because our description is just, this is...
That's what I mean. Like,
oh, no, it has... UFOs isn't in our description. Our description is a loose cannon podcast featuring casual conversations with whomever we deem interesting.
Yeah, that's
often on the fringe.
Okay, so if I type in loose cannon, nothing happens. There's no way to find it, I'm telling you.
Except by searching Grimerica. Back to square one. We should have came up with a better title.
Okay, so here we are. So he says in Spotify a few months back, and I can safely say this is my favorite. Well, this is pretty much the only podcast I've listened to. So yeah, you guys popped my podcast cherry. Haha. Sounds fucked up. And the intros are sick. I don't know what. Oh, geez. He says, I don't know what the others see you next Tuesday are saying. I always like them and would rather listen to them if the guest doesn't interest me. So anyways, I was at work today listening to the grime and I got some pretty cool synchros happening. So firstly, having listened to the most recent apps, the Grant Cameron one was rad balls, by the way, was scrolling through the list of the show and came across the Pepe/Keck episode. Being a lover and practitioner of the occult, I had seen stuff about Pepe and meme magic on Reddit. That's in the occult subreddit section. So I listened to the app and it was awesome. I wanted more, so I scrolled through the list again and see the Paul is Dead episode.
Interesting.
I had seen a doco, that's what they call it in Aussie on YouTube about Paul's death a few years ago. It was called Winged Beetle, I think. Anyways, I listened to that one, I thought. So in the intro of that episode, you guys started talking about Pepe. I was like, holy shit balls, synchro. I listened to the rest of the app, and my workmate and I went to his house for lunch. While we're eating and stuff, the convo went to talking about childhood cartoon shows and how you could write into them, and they would read your letter out on the show or some crap. Anyways, my workmate's girlfriend said she used to write in all the time and call radio stations and whatnot. I was thinking to myself at that point, why don't I write into the Grimerica dudes about my synchro? Nah, can't be fucked, I thought. I'm not one to do that kind of stuff. I'm more of a lurker. So continuing the story, I drove home from work, went outside to char down on some bongs and look at some shit on Reddit. I was still thinking about that synchro and deciding to look up the Pepe subreddit. I scrolled down about 2 posts and I fucking spit chips. There staring at me was a picture of 4 Pepes in the Sgt. Pepper jackets. I was like, what the shit? Now I have to write in you guys. Man, that's my synchro. Hope you guys enjoy it and hope Dazza gives us a sweet score. Anyways, I can't be stuffed writing
Definitely
anymore.
Australian.
So catch you later, Darren and Graham, Spam Calf Ham Dunlop.
Daz is a thing, and
That's you. That's your
yeah,
nickname.
Daz is. I should get people to call me Dazza.
P.S. Have you heard about Simon Parks?
Who's that?
Yes, I have. My friend keeps telling me about him. He's an ex-politician that came out about all kinds of alien stuff. It's bloody interesting.
Nice.
There's also a YouTube occultist I enjoy called Joe March, or enjoy listening to Joe March. His channel is The Grand Infinity. Anyways, just 2 suggestions for this rad show. Catch. So here's a picture
Let's see.
of the shirt with the 4 Peppies and dressed in the Beatles Sgt. Pepper garb.
Wow.
Nice one, eh? Thanks, Peter.
That's a good synchro.
Yeah.
It's almost like a double show whammy. You listen to the 2 episodes of the show and then seeing the 2 episodes of the show intertwined on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
How the fuck is this not a simulation?
Oh, yeah. There's the Beatles section of that as well. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
After the 2 eps and going to one from
And
the
seeing
other. And
the two apps intertwined into a fucking t-shirt.
that same
Did
day.
he buy the shirt?
I don't know.
I'll give him an 8.92.
Ooh, good. Nice one. That's an impressive score.
That is an impressive score. It took me a second to catch up with the
With the
profoundness of that. Who is that from?
Peter.
Oh.
You know,
It would have been different if it
Australia.
was from Craig. Oh, Australia, not UK.
Yeah.
I got the guy, Craig W. I don't say his name, but anyway, I gave him the Black Budget support feed. I'll give you his email, and in return, he's helping track down email addresses and stuff like that for us. So we can just send him a list of people, and he'll track down their email addresses for us. That's what I spend the most time doing when I'm looking to book guests, tracking down emails. So Craig from the UK is going to do that now.
Wow. That's awesome.
That is
yeah,
awesome.
that is a lot of time for me too. And you know what? It annoys me when I can't get in contact with the person I want to. Then I ask you to find them on Facebook. And then,
Make your
then
own
it
fucking
drops.
Facebook account. How about that?
So I'll link to the episode with Pepe and what was
It's
the
a lot
other
of
one?
linking in
What was
here.
the other one? Paul is
ATL
dead.
Carver?
Paul is dead. Yeah, the Paul is dead app as well in the show notes. So what do you want?
Everything that you would ever need to know about the show. I
I got another synchro and then some bonus app for bonus content for subscribers.
do both.
Do we have time? No, I'll do this one and then the UFO quote, and then that's good.
No, we got time.
Okay, this is from. Let me just make sure I can say his name. This is from Noel. This is a bit creepy. Ready for this one?
Yep.
Well, it's kind of creepy. I have an experience to share, but it's not a trip report or a synchro. At this point, I've only told a handful of close people this story, so here it goes. In 2001, I was working the graveyard shift. It was Friday, and I had a vacation planned for the following week. I I decided to play hooky and split a little early as I completed all my assigned work. Trying not to be spotted, I crept out into the pre-dawn parking lot and climbed into my brand new F-150 Super Crew, which was my pride and joy. As I slid into the seat and closed the door, I reached to insert my key into the ignition when I heard a voice from behind me say, "You should be careful." My adrenaline surged as I spun around to look in the back seat. There was nobody there. I thought to myself, I must be working too many hours. I really need this vacation. Once my heart rate came down, I tried to laugh it off and reached to insert the key again, and I heard a voice which said, "I said you better be careful." Once more, I was jolted by that familiar fight-or-flight response, and I spun to look around again. This time, I actually exited the truck and opened the rear door to check. Empty. My mind was racing. Oh no, I'm hearing voices. I was frightened, thinking I was losing my mind, and I heard the voice as clear as day. It was not my voice. It sounded like it came into my right ear as I sat facing forward. I got back in and slowly reached forward to insert the key. I got the key into the ignition. No voice. So far, so good. I turned the key. As soon as I turned the key, I had a vision, a flash, a scene of headlights coming towards my driver's side door, making impact, and the view through the windshield of the truck flipping in the air. I tried to shake it off and thought, well, I will be extra careful. I eased out of the parking lot to the service drive, which loops around the factory, and I made my left-hand turn after traffic cleared and made my way home. At the first long left-hand curve, I looked ahead through the corner and saw headlights. They were in their own lane, but as that car entered the curve from the opposite direction, it continued to go straight. The speed limit is 35 on this road, but 50 is more typical of actual traffic patterns. This car impacted right into the driver's side door, and when my front wheels hit the curb, the truck rolled in the air, landing on the roof like a movie stunt. It happened in the blink of an eye, just like the vision I had witnessed moments earlier. I always buckle up. But with the excitement of the voice a minute ago, I totally forgot to click it. I do not remember sliding out from behind the wheel, but I ended up on the headliner with the driver's side door totally caved in and the smell of gasoline leaking everywhere. The truck was a total loss, but I crawled out of the shattered window and walked away from that without a scratch. And I always wonder, what if I buckled up? I was 35 when this happened. I've never heard any voices before. Never had any kind of prior mystical experience. And I have never told anyone other than my wife of what I heard that morning for fear of ridicule.
Well, you just told a whole ton of people.
However, 6 years later, I was settling in to watch some college football. My wife walked by and said she was going to run to the store to get some groceries or to return some purchases. I told her to have fun. As she started to walk away, the same voice I had heard 6 years earlier said, "If you let her go, you'll never see her again." I ran after her and told her what had just happened. She just turned to me with her hands on her hips, smiled, and said, "So, what game are we watching today?" All I can think of is it wasn't my time or hers. We are both well, and there must be something that we are put here on this earth to do that we haven't accomplished yet. Strange, but 100% true. Always looking forward to your episodes, as well as now being able to catch up on the Black Budget support feed. Keep on rocking in the free world.
Keep on rocking in the free world.
Is that what they call the third man effect or something? Like a guardian angel kind of thing? I mean, makes you wonder.
Isn't the third man when you're by yourself?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be the second man?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or is that when you think about yourself?
It reminds me of those hand, like where a hand comes out and grabs your wheel and turns the car, or like, you know, that, what do they call that?
Yeah, that's like guardian angel.
It's like the manifestation of the hand, or the hand is the manifestation of the voice. Pretty hard to ignore though, eh? After that, imagine having that vision, then getting hit, truck rolls over and you're okay, you walk without a scratch.
Yeah, well, he's got to be some sort of clairvoyant, some level of clairvoyance, I would assume. He's able to peep through, but only at heightened levels of emotion. The future emotion that he would have felt somehow let him peek through.
Yeah.
The emotion of dying if he was wearing his seatbelt, or the emotion of losing his wife. somehow rippled that veil enough that he could see it beforehand.
Yeah.
It's just him talking to himself.
No, it's not him talking to himself. It's a voice.
Yeah, but the voice is his future self.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Right?
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? I can't rate that, though. Unrateable.
All right.
Which one was that? Was that a synchro?
No.
All right, well, do your quote then and talking to the mic. Quit chewing your nails.
The UFO quote?
Profound UFO quote of the week.
So, this is the UFO quote of the week. We've got no conclusions, except after this, do not give us the old routine of Venus, weather balloons, aircraft, and the like, which has been given as a general panacea for almost every case of UFOs. That's from Captain Jose Lemos Ferreira, with Sergeants Alberto Covas and Salvador Oliveira and Manuel Marcelino, after an alleged encounter with a UFO on a flight out of the Ota Air Base in Portugal.
Nice. There you have it.
Yep.
What else you got?
That's it, buddy.
I think that's about it.
Yep.
Here, keep talking for a
Keep
sec.
talking. Yeah, we want to thank everybody for their support and thanks for listening, and really glad you found the show and really hope that you like this great chat with Robert Sullivan. And we've got lots of content coming out and we're looking forward to releasing it. And we got lots booked. Got some really, really interesting stuff too. The Halloween episode is going to be crazy.
Okay, we're good.
Could be my
yeah, that was
favorite.
a great one. The one with
Is
Garrett?
that going in our regular feed then, or is that a Black
absolutely it
Magic?
is. I don't know if this is going to play or not. This is a new jingle. I just want to play a new jingle. I don't think you've heard it yet.
Oh no.
That's not about you.
Okay, good.
It's fucking...
Get out a pen and paper and write this down. Or a pencil. Why don't you send some physical mail to the Grimerica show? At P.O. Box 16033. Next line. 100-815, 17th Avenue, SW. Next line. Calgary, Alberta. Next line. Canada. Next line. T2T space 5H7. That's the P.O. Box. Why don't you send Darren some dirty socks? Cause he's got a dirty sock fetish. Why don't you send Graham some gold bullion? Cause he's got a gold bullion fetish. Send him some gold. Send him some gold. Send him some gold in the P.O. Box. P.O. Box. P.O. Box. A get physical. A get physical. A get physical. Everybody loves to get physical and get physical mail.
What?
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
I
it's true.
love it.
It is true.
Nothing beats physical mail at the P.O. Box, and I do love dirty socks. I'm Bob.
Right on.
Whatever you want to call it. Send Graham some gold. Send me some socks. All right, guys. And some cash. My real money is nice, too. Hey, you see that American money all crisp instead of our money's starting to look more and more like Cuban pesos every fucking new rendition, like convertible Cuban pesos. All right, guys. Enjoy the chat with Robert W. Sullivan III, right? Fourth.
Tonight we're excited to have Robert W. Sullivan IV back in studio. I think it's his third time here. Yeah, he's a best-selling author, a Freemason, historian, philosopher, antiquarian. And his new book just came out this year, Symbolism 2, More Esoteric Imagery in Popular Movies. So we're looking forward to talking to you about that. Welcome back, Robert.
Hey guys, Darren, Graham, thank you for having me back on Grimerica. It's my pleasure to be here. Yeah, I think the first time was for Royal Arch of Enoch, second time was for Cinema Symbolism. So yeah, it's wonderful to be back, and thank you for having me on for Cinema Symbolism too. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, symbolism and masonry and all that is always super relevant. It seems to tie into a little bit of everything. That we talk about here.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's my first book was nearly 700 pages. Then the first cinema book was nearly 500, and this one's almost up to 7. So yeah, it's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to go over, and certainly, I talked about Masonry and Masonic symbols in Royal Arch of Enoch, and in Cinema Symbolism too. I actually have a chapter called Freemasonry and Popular Culture. So yeah, it definitely is influential. I can't argue with you there.
Yeah, guys, check out our last 2 episodes with Robert. We'll link to him in the show notes. What movies did you focus on this time? Right.
So Cinema Symbolism 2 takes on a new slate of movies. I revisited a couple from the first book that I wanted to expound upon, but I've got all kind of new, took apart new films. I have a horror movie section where I got into Kubrick's The Shining and a lot of the repetition going on in that. There's an interesting study with the movie Crimson Peak and its nexus to The Shining. That's interesting. I have a chapter on Freemasonry, which I was just talking about. I get into films such as Stargate and The Man Who Would Be King. I have a chapter, not necessarily movies made by the Illuminati, but I have a chapter on what we call the Illuminati in film. Movies such as They Live and Stanley Kubrick again, Eyes Wide Shut. I have a chapter on the spaghetti westerns, very interesting, some very interesting archetypal imagery going on in that. I did finally got around to David Lynch and Alan Moore. These were two sets of films that I was originally planning on taking on in Cinema Symbolism, but alas, I ran out of time and space. So I did 3 Alan Moore movies, From Hell, V for Vendetta, and The Watchmen. And then with David Lynch, I was originally planning on taking on Twin Peaks TV show. Now, when I was writing this, the new series hadn't come out yet, and I haven't seen that yet. I've not watched any of the new series, and I haven't watched Twin Peaks, the old series, in quite a while. It would have gone on forever. It would have just taken too much time. So I just focused on some of my favorite movies by him that are replete with symbolism: Blue Velvet, Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and what was the other one there? Dune, the Frank Herbert movie. So yeah, it's all new movies. I'm really happy with the way the book came out. And like I said, I'm already started outlining Cinema Symbolism 3. So even more to talk about.
So is that what it is? It astounds me that there's just that much symbolism in these Hollywood movies that you can keep writing books about it. I mean, we've also talked about Jay Dyer's stuff on like the esoteric Hollywood, and it's starting to make me look at things differently, especially movies and TV shows now. It seems so much more intentionally.
Well, it's like between that and the propagandic aspect of it, it's like I'd rather the mythology ones. Anyway, I'd rather the symbolic mythology than the propaganda.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the symbolism, I think, is unquestioned. I would say that I don't find it in every movie. Certainly not all movies contain it. But if you get a filmmaker and filmmakers who are sophisticated, you will find it. And you will find political, hints and things like that in films, although in some aspects, especially right now, they're trying to tone this down a little bit. They don't want to isolate half their audience. Quite literally, but you will find political metaphors in film, and like you said, propaganda. I mean, that's certainly you look at a movie even going back into the 40s, something like Yankee Doodle Dandy, which was completely pro-war World War II propaganda. So it does go back, but yeah, it's definitely going on. No question about it. I wouldn't have written 2 books about it if I wasn't 100% convinced it wasn't intentional. I do get into some aspects of it where maybe it's not intentional, and this ties into things like Carl Jung and the collective unconscious, and we get into the deep works of Plato and things like that. But don't get me wrong. I mean, I think these filmmakers know exactly what they're doing. They're drawing on ancient mythology, symbolism, the occult, and it definitely is transforming the movie, making it more powerful. And certainly, God knows they're printing money off of it, so they must be doing something right.
So how can we do that with a podcast?
Well, I don't know. you could, I guess, suppose it's funny you mentioned that. It's actually somewhat salient because, you could perhaps. I'm staring here, looking at your logo. I like it. The Easter Island with the headphones and the UFO behind him. You could come up with something with a logo, perhaps. I mean, but I like what you have. I think it's very interesting and certainly is eye-catching. But it was funny. I was on with another podcast. I was doing another podcast just the other night, and the woman is actually a writer like I am. And she said something very interesting to me, and it resonated. And she says, when I write these books, because I do the same thing. She said, when I write these books or my short stories or whatever, I put little clues in and little references and, things like that and hope people pick up. And I do the same thing. So there must be something to this with movie makers wanting to do it, because I know, God knows, as an author, I do it myself. So, maybe it's more commonplace and, maybe filmmakers just enjoy doing it as a game of chess, challenging the author or excuse me, I guess in the case of a movie, the viewer to go find this stuff. But, it's definitely going on. I have no question about that.
Disney's always been good on it. We're actually going to do a show on the Disney little sneak-ins.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I got someone lined up.
I've been thinking about that recently. I can't believe you guys are talking about that, because after knowing that you were coming back on and we were also talking about it somewhere else, where how film and music might line up and all this, and how people do it intentionally. David Charles played. And I was wondering if, how can we incorporate that into our podcast? Like, does that give you some extra power or some extra, you know what I mean? Some extra force there in a way. If you put sort of hidden messages or hidden meanings in there, is there a magical component to it? And you've already sort of answered some of my initial questions about whether it's unintentional or intentional, or whether it's just the creator of the film, or is there, sometimes is other symbolism getting slid in there, without them knowing about it as well?
That's a great question. Because I think a lot of times it's the director and the producer and really, the guys, the higher ups, the collaborators with it. But you can certainly get into script writers and production designers. Interesting that you will have. There are two movies out, and the two movies echo each other very much so. One movie you probably have seen or heard of. The other one maybe not. We don't have to talk about it, but I'm just making a point. The movies are Black Swan, which was Darren Aronofsky, and there was another movie that came out a few years later called Stoker, which was made by, I believe, a Japanese filmmaker named Chan-wook Park. And those two movies have the same production designer, and they actually trade on some of the exact same symbolism. So you can pin that down as to what she was doing. I mean, they're very similar. And this woman clearly knew what she was doing. And it's funny, too, because Stoker actually references Black Swan. They have somewhat of a parallel storyline, and she actually puts stuff in to tip you off to this. So it is interesting. It's not necessarily the director per se. It is a collaborative effort. But also, on the other hand, when you get into things like Walt Disney, a lot of times with that, when you get into now the Disney stuff does have esoteric symbolism, but when you get into some of the more racy things where they put the pornographic still in the rescuers or things like that. I mean, to me, that's more of just an animator screwing around, tongue in cheek almost. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily produce or ascribe, I guess that's the better word, a sinister motive to that, where to me, something like that's just, the animator just screwing around for the hell of it, basically.
Yeah. So, and then the collective unconscious part, the Jungian part of this, how, it's amazing because when we talk to these other people and some of your symbolism, like it really does seem like there's coincidences and synchronicities and dates and times and all this stuff lining up that couldn't even be created by us. It's like there's a higher power orchestrating this artistic, synchronicity. And so have you found that during this search as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I have. I have found I make the point that I believe this is intentionally placed. I have documented filmmakers who have incorporated esoteric imagery, and I am 100% convinced they had no knowledge of what they were actually putting in their movie. For instance, in the Ed Wood movie, Ed Wood, it was a very he's well known now, but he made a string of B movies. He was just a horrendous filmmaker. He's often credited as the worst filmmaker in history, but his movies have attained a cult status here because they're so bad they're good. But in one of his early movies, it was a movie called Glenn or Glenda. He actually presents one of the greatest examples of a Gnostic demiurge on film. And I am 100% convinced that it's completely unintentional. I mean, I don't think Wood knew what he was doing. But I'm often asked, especially when it gets into Gnosticism, give me an example of the demiurge on film. And I'm always going back to this film. If you ever sit down and watch it, the movie's called Glenn or Glenda. If you ever sit down and watch this thing, it's only like 60 minutes long or something. I mean, it's just silly. It's a ridiculous movie. But he cast Bela Lugosi as this god of the material world and puppet master. And it's literally one of the greatest Gnostic demiurges you will see on screen. And I am 100% convinced it's unintentional. When you get into, and again, this ties into the whole Carl Jung collective unconscious aspect of this. When you get into synchronicity, that's also an interesting phenomenon where it seems like there is symbolism and esoterica surrounding a film that, just seems to be coming from a higher power. I actually have documented where this can actually impact people's lives. And I talk about this in the first movie book, and I mention it in the second one. And it's an interesting study, and it's one of those things you just can't explain this. If you look at the career and life of Elvis Presley, the musician, the king of rock and roll, his life is just surrounded with solar allegory from start to finish. It was almost like it was investing him as this sort of Apollo, the god of music, the god of rock and roll, solar symbolism from start to finish, from his birth to his death. And I can't account for it. I don't know why this is. I don't know why this is happening. But if you study the life of Elvis Presley, you will just repeatedly come away with just seeing one solar emblem, solar symbol surrounding this man after another. And I chalk it up to Jungian synchronicity. It's the only thing I can explain to. It's the only thing I can come up with to explain it. It's a remarkable study.
So do the powers that be, and I mean, I know, you're a Freemason and all this, so people will think that you're, somehow connected to all this, but I mean, we've had enough Freemasons on that, it doesn't seem to be the case to me, but I mean, the powers that be, there seems to be the light shining on this occult activity of the powers that be lately, especially. And are they tapping into this collective unconsciousness, or this, I don't know how to even describe it. Are they tapping in and using that, for power? I mean, can you see that that's going on as well through occult practices? Or
yeah, I kind of don't disagree with that. I may not. I agree with what you're saying. I don't know if their motive would be that. I think a lot of times these filmmakers are very prideful, and I think for them, especially when you get into things like movies such as The Matrix. Or the Star Wars movies, especially 4, 5, and 6, or films such as Black Swan. I mentioned that again, or Kubrick with The Shining, or Eyes Wide Shut. I believe their motivation is. I think they're very cognizant of this material. That this is one of the arguments against this. Is you will constantly hear thrown around as, these guys had no knowledge of this. This is bull. These guys are very well in tuned to this material through cinematography, through training in Hollywood. Manly P. Hall's Philosophical Research Society is a stone's throw away. Mm-hmm. These guys are very well tuned into this, and I believe that a lot of or not a lot. I mean, I'm not them, but I think the motivation for them in doing a lot of this is, I believe it's for them. It's a way of creating modern day mythology. So in that aspect, I guess it is power. Certainly look at the Star Wars movies. I mean, those are so ingrained in material and popular culture. I mean, things have taken on a life of their own. So for the filmmaker, I believe, that could be a motivation for this. Certainly power is part of it, but it's also, power in creating modern day mythology, shaping material culture, shaping popular culture, just shaping culture in general. And I think that's a very powerful elixir for these guys.
Yeah, and intentionally hiding things in there too. It's like that, it's almost like having to be invited into by a vampire or something, right? You're letting that intention out, and even if it's in a hidden way, it sort of excuses that karmic repercussion or something. I mean, I feel like there's something to that as well, where they can start, they can put out these movies that are really disinformation campaigns on what could be going on. And, now when people look at, there's a new movie coming out about weather warfare. And, now when people talk about the real weather modifications going on, it's just going to seem like it's disinformation because, they made a movie about it. It kind of discredits the whole phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly, say that. I think it's interesting that, it's a two-way street with the symbolism, because, you could say, okay, well, they hide it and, they use it and it's maybe manipulative. But when you discover it, you're watching something entirely different. And once you decode it, then it's a two-way, then they're exposed. And then, you know what to look for and you've figured it out. So by putting it in there, it can contain hidden messages, but it also can reveal hidden messages. And that's really exciting for me. It was trying to discover what these films, were revealing, these deeper layers to these films. And believe you me, many of them have them. I mean, I don't know, I think Hollywood, I think it's almost like a cause and reaction and then reaction and cause almost. I think a lot of times in Hollywood, they are very tuned into alternative media, conspiracy, and they form shows around it. I mean, and, you take a look at the X-Files, for example. I mean, a lot of the mythology of that show, the really deep mythology, this came out of the works of Bill Cooper. That there was this government conspiracy with the aliens, and you had this secret cabal, this Illuminati-style group. So these guys pick up on this, and I guess they see it as an alternative way of maybe exploiting something if they feel it's powerful and people like it. Hollywood isn't ashamed to try to turn a buck off of it. Yeah,
that's a good point. So do you have to defend yourself as a Freemason for all the conspiracy theorists out there that think, who's this guy decoding all the symbolism when he's a Freemason himself? Like, is there, I mean, how is that lately for you guys?
Right. I do it. I don't back away from it at all. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you. I've gotten asked similar questions from this. I don't hide my Masonic membership. I'm very proud of it. And I can tell you right now that my books wouldn't exist if it wasn't for my Masonic membership, because it was through Freemasonry that you really get a lesson in decoding symbolism. And you're exposed to people like Manly P. Hall, Albert Pike. And when you really start delving into their works, you'll find a lot of this stuff turning up in film, and Joseph Campbell, and comparative religion and comparative symbolism and comparative mythology. So being a Freemason for me has helped me tremendously. In fact, I don't think these books, I'm pretty sure I can say with utmost confidence that my three books wouldn't exist but for my Masonic membership. For example, I would never have, if I wasn't a Freemason, I couldn't tell you that the National Treasure movie, the Walt Disney movie, the first National Treasure movie, was a Masonic ritual from start to finish. You were literally when you watch that movie, you were watching a Freemasonic ritual on screen. Now, if a person doesn't like Freemasons and thinks, this is a Freemason talking, I'm going to tune him out, or whatever. Well, my response to that is really, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't worry about stuff like that. I can only present the material as I understand it. That's a decision that's out of my control. If a person wants to tune me out and not listen, because of my Masonic membership, certainly that's their right and their privilege. I don't. I just present the material. People like it, they like it. If they don't, there's really not much I can do about it. So I don't worry about it too much.
You should be a Mason, Graham.
No way.
Maybe I'll go.
Well, it's funny because it's funny actually. I'm not gonna name names, but I've done a couple podcasts. Like you said, I think this is my third time on, and I was on with another show, and it was about my fourth or fifth time on, and it was on Skype. And after the show ended, the guy said, "Don't hang up." He said, "I want to talk to you," and I said, "Fine." And he exited the show, and we were talking. He said, "I want to become a Freemason." He said, "I've listened to you now for 5 times, and I'm very interested in this." And I actually reached out to the lodge I told him how to go about it, to contact the lodge in his jurisdiction. And sure enough, he became a Freemason. He's going through the ritual process, I believe, as we speak. So I have had people talk to me and wanted to become a Freemason afterwards. So I guess I must be doing something right.
Does another Mason have to vouch for you? Is that how it works?
Well, the way it works is generally, if the long and short of it is, is you may have heard this phrase before, is to be one, ask one. And the idea is if you know someone who's a Freemason you want to join, you have to solicit their membership. As a Freemason, I am actually not allowed to solicit members. I'm not allowed to recruit. Now, to be brutally honest with you, this obviously happens with family members and best friends and things like that. But if you asked, and you asked me how to join, I could certainly start the ball rolling. You would have to, I could instruct you on how to go about joining. Now, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. So if you were in Maryland, it would be much more easier because you're where I am. You're in my jurisdiction. If you're outside my jurisdiction in another one of the 50 states or in another country, Canada, such as where you guys are, it might be. In the United States, it's not as hard. I'd have to look into Canada, but I don't think that would be a problem either. But I mean, I could tell you what to do. I mean, I could instruct you as to what steps you would need to take. Now, again, if you were in Maryland, it would be a little bit easier because you'd be where I am. But if you're outside of Maryland, I could instruct you on the steps you would need to take. I've done it. I've done it for like 7 or 8 people who have said, hey, I want to join. I'm in Connecticut. I'm in New York. I'm wherever. And I tell them what they need to do.
In Calgary, we have an open house every, or not we, but they have an open house.
Whoa!
They have an open house every year that you can go to and ask a bunch of questions and find out. So it's pretty. I went there once, and yeah,
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, the guy I was talking to there was talking about esoteric, and it took me a while to figure out what he was talking about. And instead of saying esoteric, he was saying, I thought, well, maybe that's how the Freemasons pronounce esoteric.
Or he's mispronouncing erotica.
Yeah. I've never even heard it closely pronounced that way.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
So, but most of the Freemasons I've met, I mean, you guys seem like fascinating people that are into learning all kinds of stuff and helping each other through it and just very, curious people. But can you say that like the level 33rds aren't running the world in some sort of secret fashion? I mean, are you guys comfortable saying that?
Well, I mean, I can only answer the question this way. I mean, I don't have a problem with anyone asking me this. I've been asked this many a time before. I've been involved with Freemasonry for 20 years now. I've been in the Blue Lodge for over 20. Mm-hmm. And I've been in the Scottish Rite for almost 18 years now. Mm-hmm. In all my time in Freemasonry, I have never encountered anything remotely close to a Illuminati, devil-worshipping cabal that is trying to take over the world or the government. I've never encountered it. If it's there, I've never seen it. There is very powerful people in Freemasonry. It is influential. It is involved in the community. I do not dispute any of that. There's powerful people in Freemasonry, politicians and movers and shakers and philanthropists and people of that sort. Mm-hmm. I have never encountered any sort of demonic hell-bent cabal that was trying to take over the government or anything like that. Now, I can tell you, I talk about this in my first book, The Royal Arch of Enoch. And I mean, I'm not, I don't back away from it. Now, it wasn't evil, but there was in the early days of the United States, the secret cabal of Masons running the show behind the government. That did happen. It wasn't sinister. That was viewed as sinister. But the guys who were doing it were trying to unify the country because it was still a fledgling nation. When this thing blew up in the mid-1820s, this is what led to all this, conspiracy talk and, are these guys still around? Are these guys the puppet masters, things like that? What it seems to have happened was it kind of disabled this Masonic cabal completely, but the whispers and the conspiracy still survived. And then especially now when you get into looking at the architecture of places like Washington, D.C., or Baltimore and the Masonic symbolism, a lot of people see this stuff as, this evidence of this overarching, dark, demonic Masonic conspiracy where these guys were using the tools of Masonry to nation build. And that's what was really going on. And these guys would have been freaking out if they thought there was anything evil with any of this stuff. This was all stuff coming out of the Enlightenment, out of the Renaissance, coming out of, it's a little, occultish. No question about it. You're dealing with things relating to Christian Kabbalah and Hebrew Kabbalah and mysticism and the ancient mystery schools and things like that. But essentially, these guys were, in the early days of the country, using Freemasonry as not only an institution to mold the government around, but it was also to use its symbols and instruments and philosophies to nation build. So that's what's going on. But no, I think Freemasonry is interesting. I've been involved with it for 20 years. I'm better off for being in it. Like I said, it's taught me to learn and to see the world differently and to use, to look at things symbolically. That's one of the things for me, at any rate, that it's taught me. And like I said, if this is there, I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, thanks for explaining that. I appreciate it. It is good to. I mean, that's what I figure, but it's good to hear it from people, and I'm sure our listeners will appreciate your candidness on that.
Sure. I mean, I don't mind talking about it, and like I said, if it's there, I've never seen it.
Yeah, and just because a few guys in Freemasonry get together, and I mean, of course, a few guys that are powerful get together doesn't mean that all of Freemasonry is in on this thing or something. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of different, like you said, movers and shakers and stuff within the organization that are doing their own thing, and it doesn't mean that it's this big overarching conspiracy.
Right. I mean, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And, I mean, is there a dark side to it? I mean, have there been people involved with it who have maybe been unsavory? Of course. I mean, you're going to find that in any walk of life, in any occupation, in any sort of group. I mean, there's always going to be a black sheep. I mean, that's impossible to avoid. But, when you're doing masonry and, how big it is and how large it is, I mean, sure, of course, you're always going to get, someone in there who's a dark figure. I mean, that's always kind of interesting to me. The Aleister Crowley types. I mean, those are the ones that everyone wants to talk about anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right. No one wants to talk about, whoever, William McKinley. Everyone wants to talk about, Aleister Crowley and A.E. Waite, and the Golden Dawn and, all that good stuff. But no, like I said, I've been involved with it, and I'm proud of my membership. I would never deny it. I don't hide it or anything like that. I'm completely open with it. And I do my best whenever I'm on these shows, such as yours, to try to be as, candid as possible and answer all your questions. So, you go ahead, ask me anything you want to about masonry, about movies. Go right ahead.
I will, because one of the movies that affected me most as a kid was The Warriors back in the. Now, I don't know. I think it's from the late 70s, but I mean, I don't remember seeing it until probably the early 80s. I mean, it was probably one of those ones that was more popular like a few years later.
Is that the one where the kids meet in the park and fight?
No, you're thinking of a different one. You're thinking of...
I don't think I've seen The Warriors.
No, yeah, you're thinking of it. I know which one you're thinking of with all that, the Rat Pack and all those guys.
Footloose guys in it.
Yeah, that's a different movie.
Okay.
This is a gangs in New York.
Dennis Swade, is that his name? No, not Dennis Swade. Patrick Swayze. The Sways.
You're thinking The Outsiders.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
No, the Warriors. If you'd like me to talk about it.
Yeah.
The Warriors. I'm so this is one of my all-time favorite movies. The Warriors.
Yeah.
I mean, this was this. I think it came out in around 1979, 1980. If you asked me to rattle off probably my top 5 movies, The Warriors would be in there.
Yeah, me too.
And this is a great movie. It's a great movie anyway. If you've never seen it, by all means, check it out. It has a great Gnostic undercurrent with this movie, and it's definitely there. And I mean, it involves this whole idea of journey to selfhood, of receiving light, of receiving wisdom, of having your Gnostic epiphany. I mean, Gnosticism, is a theology. The word gnosis or Gnostic literally means to know. And this is what this movie is about. It's to know thyself. So we have esoterically. Let's go into it a little bit.
Yeah.
We have these gangs coming together. They're all battling in New York City. These different gangs, and they're very colorful. If you ever see the movie, I mean, the gangs are all kind of strange, wear different costumes, things like that.
Like the baseball gang and the guys on the rollerblades.
Exactly. Yeah, the baseball furies and the guys on the roller skates, and when they come together, they call it truce. They're not going to fight each other. And they come to this meeting in the Bronx, in this park, where the biggest gang of all is called the Gramercy Riffs. They're led by a guy named Cyrus. They have this truce where they're not going to fight each other this night. They're going to meet, and he's going to try to unite them all under this one banner, become this one super gang, and then battle the cops and try to take over New York. That's the idea. Cyrus gets shot at the very beginning, and all this falls apart, and the truce falls apart, and they have to battle their way back to Coney Island, which is their turf. This is their little world of materialism. And the murder gets pinned on them. The word gets out that they killed him, but of course they're not. They're innocent. There's been another gang that's done it who's gotten away with it at the time. But interesting name to give to the guy Cyrus, who's trying to unify the gangs in New York. A reference to Cyrus the Great, the Persian emperor who was trying to unify the different parts of Persia under one banner. This is what Cyrus is trying to do in New York, unify all the gangs together. Great symbolism with the name. So we have the warriors battling these other gangs to go back to their little piece of turf. And as they battle, the gangs that they're fighting against are sort of mirror reflections of themselves. They battle, they fight. And the whole idea is as they're doing this, they're gaining wisdom, they're gaining knowledge. They finally meet in Gnosticism, in the Gnostic theology. One of the chief tenets is dualism, light, dark, good, evil, male, female. And of course, they meet their sacred feminine in the form of Mercy, this woman who's like a street urchin. And of course, they're the warriors. They're warlike. We're dealing with dualism. She's mercy. She's benevolence. She's kindness. So great dualistic interplay there with the male and female. So they continue battling, and then they get back to Coney Island, and this is where they have their Gnostic epiphany, where they're looking over Coney Island, this dilapidated hellhole. The sun's rising in the background, bringing light, wisdom, gnosis. And Swan he's the gang leader. He has this epiphany. He says, this is what we fought all night to get back to. It's a rejection of materialism. He wants something better. He wants something spiritual. Finally, at the end, he gives up the gang banging and he walks off into the sunlight, the light again. He's enlightened now, and he's going to give up the gang banging. He's going to give up his material ways. He's going to forsake his little piece of turf for something spiritual. I wouldn't necessarily call this a full-blown Gnostic movie in the vein of something like The Matrix or Fight Club or The Truman Show, but it definitely has a Gnostic undercurrent. And I love the nameplay. Interesting. This guy's name is Swan, of all things. He's the gang leader. He's the guy who kind of gets enlightened there at the end. In the ancient mystery tradition, the symbol of the candidate when they were initiated into gnosis was a swan, of all things. Wow. So that's fascinating there. So the entire movie is this journey of self, receiving light, receiving wisdom, the interplay with the sacred feminine. It's very esoteric. It's a great movie anyway. I wouldn't necessarily call this a Gnostic film. I talk about this in Cinema Symbolism too, but it's certainly a movie that flirts with Gnosticism. And it's a great movie anyway. So if you want a good movie to watch and you've never seen it, by all means, check it out. But pay attention to some of the symbolism. Very esoteric. It's a great movie.
So would they have been one of the gangs in New York? Is it this was real time, I think. Oh, was it? I think it was real time. Real time in the 70s when I wasn't alive, so not real time. Yeah.
Right. The movie was filmed in 1979 and takes place, in that time frame in the late 1970s, 78, 79. Gangs in New York with Martin Scorsese is another esoteric movie. Loads going on in that. The symbolism in Gangs in New York with Scorsese is exactly what Sergio Leone does in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and some of the other spaghetti westerns. It's good versus evil. It's the Christ figure, light versus darkness. Some great symbolism in Scorsese's Gangs in New York. Actually, that's a whole chapter in Cinema Symbolism too that I took on. That's a fascinating study as well.
One of the themes I hate about these movies, and I think it's the type you're talking about, is that how you have all these criminals that you're kind of that you're kind of liking, like they make you sort of like revere the criminals in a way, and yet they're or somebody like the hero of the movie is they're trying to save their family or trying to do that, and yet they're killing all these people along the way. It's this whole struggle between like saving your one loved one or your one, girlfriend or daughter or son or whatever. Meanwhile, you're killing a bunch of people. And it always just seems like frustrating to me that all these people are falling in love with these characters that are really like the good and evil part of it is sort of like, it's not really true. It's like there's good and evil on both sides.
Right. What you're talking about, I think, is what's called the anti-hero. This is the figure who is a villain, but he's revered. Yeah. And these movies often have these movies often have three interplays going on. You have the hero, the villain, and the villain is usually is someone you're rooting against. Then you have the anti-hero, who's a villain, but is the person you're rooting for. And examples of this is a very powerful figure in film. So, for example, the anti-hero, I mean, two of the biggies out there, the biggest anti-hero of all that I can think of is Hannibal Lecter. The mass murderer who everyone likes. And you watch Silence of the Lambs, the villain is Buffalo Bill. No one likes him. I mean, he's a legitimate, bad guy. But Lecter's just as evil, but you root for him as well. You root for him like you're rooting for Clarice Starling. The Severus Snape figure in the Harry Potter is the same sort of character, almost Darth Vader in Star Wars. The villain, but he's not quite as evil as the Emperor.
What about Billy the Kid? And remember those old Young Guns movies? Those were the fucking shit.
Yeah, it's just a archetype that is a villain, but he's a likable villain, and it's a powerful archetype. I mean, a lot of these characters are embodiments of archetypal imagery. The solar resurrected God-man, the sun hero, the lunar heroine, the mother, the trickster, the hermit. These are all very powerful archetypes that turn up in film. And this is another study, is archetypal imagery, archetypal characters. When you start dissecting some of this, you will find these same characters turning up over and over again. I mean, in a lot of cases, they even look alike. When you get into the hermit figure, the wizard figure, the god of magic, you turn to Albus Dumbledore, you turn to Obi-Wan Kenobi, you turn to Gandalf the Grey. I mean, they all look alike. I mean, it's the old Greybeard, who has all the wisdom and doles it out piecemeal. So, yeah, I mean, you get into the actual characters and, what they represent. That can be another way of powerfully communicating with your subconscious mind.
Do you think that negatively affects our culture, though? Like all this glorifying violence and glorifying crime. Like I feel like the big anti-heroes these days are these criminals, like the crime capers. Like, those either they're international intrigue or those real high-tech crime capers. And, you're kind of, you're with the guy who's committing all these crimes. You want them to succeed in a way, yet it's like high-end crime.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously movies have a great impact on society, material culture, popular culture, culture in general. I guess whether it's good or bad is somewhat of a subjective study. I don't know how many Hannibal Lecter T-shirts or anything like that I've ever seen, but certainly you get into, like Star Wars figures. I mean, you got the Darth Vader figure and stuff like that, but, is that evil? I mean, I don't know. I don't think so.
It's more like the not the evil ones. I'm thinking of more of the subtle, like the Ocean's 11 type, or all these you know what I mean? The ones that are performing all the heists, that are, the likable characters, and they're all cool about what they do, and I feel like it's just negative.
Getting all the girls.
Yeah, I've watched Ocean's 11. I mean, it's just a movie. I mean, I've never really looked at it as too negative. I mean, the guy they're going against is sort of like a bastard also. So, but
that's usually the case. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually the case. Right. I mean, it's like
a Robin Hood scenario.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
Right. Exactly right. So, yeah, I mean, is it evil? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's kind of a subjective point of view, but, movies are powerful. I mean, it's probably one of the most popular, or most powerful mediums out there right now, I would think. And certainly these guys who are behind it, I am 100% convinced know what they're doing. Not all cases, but a lot of them do. And when it comes to placing this stuff in films, really, a lot of them really take it to another level. It goes well beyond just looking for, this or that. I mean, some of these guys really hide this stuff really well. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, I've been on other shows. I mean, I just, real quick, I'll end on this. For me, at any rate, doing this, I mean, I have to watch. I could never do this in a movie theater. I mean, if I go to a movie theater, I'm probably going to watch the movie for fun. Yeah, I may make some mental notes if I see something, but I have to have the movie here. I mean, I have to pause it. I mean, I'm constantly fast forwarding it backwards, forwards. Does this scene relate to this scene? The dialogue, the costuming. I mean, it's watching these movies 4, 5, 6 times, sometimes more than that, and especially scenes. I mean, it should be the smallest thing in the background of a scene that could tip you off to something huge going on inside the movie. So, yeah, it's deep, and it's a deep study.
What was your favorite one in the new book?
Well, my favorite movie to take on?
Yeah. Or maybe even the one that ended up being your favorite in the end.
Good question. Oh, boy. I think for me, my favorite chapter to write, so it's one of my all-time favorite genres, and it was really fun for me to write. And it's one of my all-time favorite movies anyway, so it was probably, I guess, really enjoyed was the Western chapter. I have a chapter called, in the book called Mystical Archetypes of the Old West. And I took on 5 movies in that chapter. The first was Red River, which was this John Wayne movie, which has a lot of masculine archetypes. It's really a prototypical film when it comes to masculine archetypes. The archetypes in that movie you will see repeat all over the place. The other movie I took on was the Magnificent Seven, and this was the original one with Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, and those characters are also archetypal. As well. But then the other 3 movies were the spaghetti westerns of Sergio Leone, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Well, let's see, do them in order. It would be Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And those are great movies. I mean, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, you asked me about the Warriors being in my top 5. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is probably my top 3. That's one of my all-time favorite movies. And Leone, the director, was Roman Catholic, and he really, really plays around in those movies with religion, especially with Christianity. It's what I would call occult Christianity, almost Kabbalah with a C, not a K. It's mystical Roman Catholicism, where you have a whole interplay of good versus evil, light versus dark. He gets involved with it in the first movie, in A Fistful of Dollars, and he kind of takes his foot off the pedal a little bit when he does the second movie. It's there, but it's not as in your face with a few dollars more. But then he hits full stride with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I mean, that's just one giant epic religious battle. And it's interesting because years later, this is what I was just mentioning, another Roman Catholic director named Martin Scorsese takes this exact same imagery, this mystical Roman Catholicism going on in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and he uses it in a movie called Gangs in New York. It's almost the exact same imagery, the same themes at any rate, good versus evil, God versus the devil, things like that nature. So to answer your question, I would say, it was one of my favorite movies anyway, but really doing the Western chapter, I really had a good time, and I really enjoyed writing that.
What do you think? What do you think about good versus evil and good and evil? We had a guest on recently, Grant Cameron, and he's just maintained this for a couple of years now. We've had him on a couple of times about, it's such a subjective thing that he doesn't really, he just thinks that you can't just say good and evil. Who decides what's good and what's evil?
Well, right. In the movie, it's much more, sure, good versus evil can always be subjective. I mean, what was it? And I always harken back to the line in Excalibur where Merlin says good and evil, you can never have one without the other. And I think he's right on the money there. But certainly when you get into the archetypes, I mean, you have a well-delineated villain, a well-delineated savior figure, Christ. I mean, this is especially true Scorsese and Leone definitely are investing their movies with the Christ versus the devil imagery in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Gangs in New York. I mean, that's definitely going on. But pulling away from the movies, yeah, I mean, sure, good versus evil, it's, as a lawyer, one of the first things they teach you in law school is there's no such thing as black and white. There is no good, there is no evil. There's only shades of gray.
Yeah.
There's never 100% guilt and there's never 100% innocence. It's only shades of gray, and it's just where you fall on the spectrum. So as a lawyer, that's just me as a lawyer speaking. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I kind of tend to agree with him. It can be subjective. It usually is never 100% one way or the other. Nothing is 100% evil, and probably nothing's 100% good either.
I like that. Good and evil is a spectrum, just like gender.
Yeah.
So well, I like the movie breakdowns, but I haven't seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well,
How have I not seen that? I'd like to break down another movie before we wrap up.
Well, how about getting into his chapter on the Masonic influences in those movies, and we can talk about that before we go.
Which one? I'd like to do did we do National Treasure the last time?
No, but you've got a chapter where you break down the Masonic influences in movies, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get into some Masonic. I'm trying to think what. Yeah, I mean, I have a chat. Hang on, the book's right here.
Yeah, I think it was
sitting right next to me.
It was a movie I was thinking of, Eyes Wide Shut. I think in the National
yeah,
Treasure,
that's a good
maybe.
one too. Yeah, and The Shining. Everyone's seen The Shining.
Yeah, I have a chapter on Masonry. I have a chapter on it's not a chapter; it's a section of a chapter in on the Illuminati. Chapter 6 is Freemasonry and popular culture. I talked about the Ninth Gate, or excuse me, I talked about National Treasure in Royal Arch of Enoch, but we can certainly revisit that. I got into the Kubrick Eyes Wide Shut, The Shining. So
let's do The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut.
Fine. We'll start with how about Eyes Wide Shut? Well start with that.
Yeah, that's Grandma's favorite.
This is a great movie. This is what I called in the book. I titled this Kubrick's Illuministic Impulse, Eyes Wide Shut. Clearly, you have a Illuminati-styled organization in this movie. It trades on, groups such as the Illuminati. You get into the OTO with the sex magic, the secret, organization with, masonry and things like that. Very interesting symbolism that Kubrick uses. The movie takes place at Christmas time, and he bombards you with Christmas lights from start to finish. It's not the little subtle white ones. It's the real gaudy, in-your-face, blue, oranges, greens, reds, Christmas lights. And these are always surrounded by the ills of mankind, the ills of humankind. Prostitution, drug overdose, drug addiction, child pornography, pedophilia. He's surrounded, prostitution. These Christmas lights and these plagues of mankind walk hand in hand. And he's doing that on purpose. He's showing you the ills of mankind, how bad mankind is. But then you get the Tom Cruise character, and he goes out to the mansion where the Illuminati is, and there's no Christmas lights whatsoever. It's devoid of Christmas. And by doing that, what Kubrick is telling you is, okay, this is the real evil. Forget about the little things that torment mankind, the pedophilia, the drug addiction. This is nothing compared to this true evil that's out there. And it's very symbolic. You have them performing the sex magic rituals. Tom Cruise is in The Mask. And then you have the red cloaked master of ceremonies. You have the magic circle there with the women, with the naked women. The master of ceremonies, pay attention to this when he's using the incense, is casting the circle backwards. He's moving counterclockwise. This is in witchcraft, what is known as Widdershins. That's black magic when you move counterclockwise. So we're dealing with black magic right off the bat. What is it that Kubrick does? Oh, he interplays. He uses the schemes to let you know that this is really happening. It's on it's on the red carpeting, and then later on in the movie, when Sidney Pollack is explaining that this is real, it's over the red pool table. That's to make you draw you back that this is really happening. Then again with the little girl at the end, where she's in the toy store and she's by the game called Magic Circle, and again that's taking you back to the Magic Circle cast by Red Cloak. So it's a great movie. It's one of those movies where, for me, if you watch the movie without paying attention to the symbolism, the movie to me is very boring. It's not interesting. But when you watch it with a symbolic lens, you put on a pair of symbolic glasses, not literally, of course, but you watch it symbolically, the movie's very entertaining. It's a great movie. I like it very much. I mean, I like the messages that it has in it. I like the hidden meanings. I like the symbolism of it. I mean, you even have it where Red Cloak's chair has the double eagles on the background. I mean, that's the symbol of the Scottish Rite, high degree masonry. Some just great esoteric imagery in Eyes Wide Shut. This is a movie I took on in cinema symbolism too. And then, of course, one of the granddaddies of them all, The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, same director. Based on the novel of Stephen King. What you have going on, what Kubrick does in this one is he repeats everything. This movie is a temple of repetition, is what I call it. It's an Ouroboros. Everything is biting its tail. It's just an endless cycle of repetition. And the reason Kubrick does this is to bombard your subconscious mind with this notion that the Overlook Hotel is an Ouroboros. It's an endless, vicious reincarnation cycle that never ends, that the characters are forever trapped there, they can't escape, and that everything repeats. So to convey this repetition, he repeats everything. Everything in this movie repeats or is presented in doubles. So where do you want to start with this? We have the number 12 repeats. He likes to repeat the number 12. The hotel room, or the hotel, is KDK12. The room number 237. If you add it up, you get the number 12. Two dates, 2 time of days are presented on the screen, 8 and 4. Add that up to get the number 12. Scatman Crothers tells you that there are, 12 bags of black molasses and 24, pork roasts, and that's 12 times 2 and 12 pounds of sugar. Jack Torrance throws the ball against the wall 12 times. Shelley Duvall and the little boy take 12 turns in the hedge maze.
What's the 12 again? Sorry?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did you say what the 12 is for already?
Well, it's a number he likes to repeat.
Oh.
Well, we have several numbers that he likes to repeat. The number 21 repeats. The number 42 repeats. If you take 237, the room number, and multiply it, you get the number 42. You'll find the number 42 on Scatman Crothers' license plate. The little boy at the beginning is wearing the number 42 on his jersey. The movie that they're watching in the hotel is The Summer of 42. The number 21 repeats. There are 7 frames of 3 rows.
A lot of that can break down to 3. Yeah.
The number, the road that he is driving on at the beginning of the film, it was built in 1921. So you have this, and it doubles. You have two mazes, the hedge maze and the boiler, or the maze inside the hallways of the Overlook. There's 2 boilers. Shelley Duvall serves him 2 eggs. There are 2 sets of twins. Jack Torrance has 2 20s and 2 10s in his wallets. There's 2 Portlands mentioned. Everything in this movie is presented in doubles and repetition. Everything. In fact, characters even say lines back to each other a few lines later. What is it? The mother says, "Keep America clean," and the little boy says, "Yeah, we got to keep America clean." The twin girls say, "Stay with us forever and ever." And then Jack Torrance, a few minutes later, is sitting on the bed and says to the son, "I want to stay here forever and ever." So everything in this movie is complete repetition. It's just an endless bombardment of numbers, doubles that Kubrick does. It's a fascinating study. I get into it much more in the book. I'm just scratching the surface with it. But it's endless repetition in The Shining, and it's done to blast your subconscious mind with this idea that the Overlook Hotel is just an Ouroboros forever biting itself, and that literally everything inside this place, including the lives of the characters, repeat. Interesting movie, fantastic movie, great study.
Yeah, really fascinating. So now that you've been doing this cinema symbolism for a few years now, and you've written 2 books and you've got a 3rd one coming, do you find that Hollywood has changed over the years lately? Is it more shallow now? Is it harder to find these deeper symbolic movies, or have you noticed any shift at all?
No, that's a great question. I'm actually going to do Cinema Symbolism 3. I'm actually getting ready to publish my first work of fiction. Once that comes out, I've got a couple books I'm playing around with. But no, this symbolism with the films, great question. It goes back in time. You could find this in movies from the 40s and the 50s with The Wizard of Oz, certainly the movies of Universal Horror based on, things like Dracula and Frankenstein. You're dealing with a lot of mystical, occult elements there. You get into the 60s with James Bond, so that has esoteric in it. So no, it's you get into, you even want to go back further in time. I mean, we get into the works of Mozart, the magic flute, very occult. Shakespeare was obsessed with ghosts and witchcraft. So, we got the occult with him. So no, Hollywood seems to be very interested in this since day one. I mean, you go back to Hollywood's start, where you look at a movie like Nosferatu, based on Dracula, that's very symbolic. You get into a movie like Metropolis, very Gnostic, very occult as well. So yeah, this has been going on from day one, and
it still is.
Yeah, it still is, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. When I was writing, I'll just end the question on this. When I was writing Cinema Symbolism 1, I did a sequel off of it because there were movies I wanted to put in it, but there was no room. Naturally, when I was writing Cinema Symbolism 2, there was movies I wanted to talk about, but the book was already long enough. So I thought, okay, well, let me do Cinema Symbolism 3. So yeah, it's a deep study, and I don't see it anytime soon.
Is there anything we could be watching now? Like, is there anything you're watching currently that's got a bunch of stuff in it that maybe our listeners can kind of get in early and start looking for stuff?
Absolutely. Sure. Great question. New movies. Absolutely. New TV shows. Take a look. I haven't seen Rogue One yet, but the last Star Wars movie, Episode 7, was loaded with esoteric symbolism. A lot of Gnostic themes, a lot of anti-Christian themes in Episode 7. So we have Episode 8 coming out soon. So I'd want to keep an eye out for that. You're going to want to watch that symbolically. I don't know if you get in Canada, I'm not saying this to be flip or anything like that. I don't know if you get American TV shows or anything like that, or how it works up there. There was a show here in the United States that aired for 5 years on A&E, Arts and Entertainment Network, called Bates Motel, which was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. If you're not, I'll just shut up. But anyway,
yeah, I've seen that on the guide anyway. I haven't watched it.
Okay, well, there was on for 5 years, and seasons 1 through 4. I'll have to go back and take a look at them, but I've watched all of it. And seasons 1 through 4 seem to be straight up on their face, but when they got to season 5, they really overloaded it with a lot of esoteric symbolism. This was a show that just wrapped up not a few months ago, so that was recent. And yeah, I mean, you're going to want to take a look at this new Star Wars movie. Like I said, Episode 7 had a lot. I've not seen Rogue One yet. So, I'm going to have to withhold commentary on that. But I'm most anxious to see Episode 7. I want to see if they continue on with the symbolism from Episode 7.
Right on. So can you give us a teaser into your third book and what you're going to be hitting there?
Sure, I sure can. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm getting ready to publish. This will happen probably in the next two months or so. My first work of fiction. That's going to be coming out probably around the end of November, early December. Uh-huh. That's my next project. That's what the book is actually with the editor right now. So once that gets out, then I can really start concentrating on some other books. I'm working on another book on Freemasonry. I'm working on some more works of fiction, but I have started outlining Cinema Symbolism 3. So yeah, I have a chapter in Cinema Symbolism 2 on Walt Disney, some of the movies at Disney. There's some more movies at Disney I want to talk about, so we're going to revisit that. I want to revisit the David Lynch material that I left out of Cinema Symbolism 2, such as Twin Peaks, Eraserhead, the one with Nick Cage and Laura Dern. I always am forgetting the name. Wild at Heart. I want to take a look at that. And of course, both series of Twin Peaks, parts 1 from the 90s and part 2 that just recently aired. And of course, Fire Walk with Me. So we're going to be taking a look at that. We're going to do the Star Wars movie. We're going to do Bates Motel for Cinema Symbolism 3. So there's a bit of a teaser for you. I'm still outlining it. But yeah, it's going to be a whole new slate of movies. And that's books, to be brutally honest with you, probably still a year or two away. But yeah, I have started outlining it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's like a series.
Yeah.
Series of Cinema Symbolism.
Hey, why not?
Yeah, no kidding. It's good when everyone loves movies. Everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like doing it. I like writing about it. I like dissecting it. So yeah, we're going to continue on with it.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, you'll have to come back when Symbolism 4 comes out. When your fiction book comes out too, yeah?
Yeah. Did you want to take a break? Did you want to wrap up? I mean, you tell me. I got an hour up on the screen for this, so.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, you can. Where should people go to find your work?
Well, thank you guys, Darren and Graham, for having me on tonight. It was a pleasure to come on Grimerica again. Third time's always a charm. Sure, and I absolutely look forward to coming back with the work of fiction or Cinema Symbolism 3 or my new book on Freemasonry. Again, I really appreciate you having me on. It's a tremendous show you have, and I really do appreciate it. I mean that. If you're interested in what I've been talking about tonight and you're interested in my work, the easiest way to find me is just go to my website. My full name is Robert W. Sullivan IV. So that's just my website. It's www.robertwsullivan.iv, the letter I, the letter V for the fourth, robertwsullivan.iv.com. Links to buy my books. It's very easy to navigate. You can get the books in the ebook format, Kindle, Nook. You can buy the print copies. They're available on all major online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and they're on Amazon Canada as well, so they're readily available. There's information there about upcoming events and appearances, radio shows, podcasts I'm going to be doing, links to my social media. Follow me on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel with playlists with extensive radio shows and podcasts I've been on. That content is all free. So just go to my website. Very easy to navigate. All the information there to buy the books. And again, it's www.robertwsullivan.iv.com. One more time, robertwsullivan.iv.com.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Check out the last two episodes too, because there's the two other ones. They're both great. We'll link to them in the show notes so you can jump into another I think there's another 2.5 hours. Us with Robert talking there about movies, and the first one is all about we go deep into the
Royal Arch of Enoch.
The Freemason stuff.
Yeah, and thanks for being so honest about all that stuff. Really appreciate being able to ask you all those questions, and I really do appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure, and I don't mind answering your questions at all. And thank you again for having me on Grimerica. It's a tremendous show, and I really appreciate it.
What's your Twitter handle again?
My Twitter handle is at Rob W. Sullivan 4, and the 4 is the number 4, at Rob W. Sullivan 4.
Okay, I got a link to that in the show notes here as well. So,
okay, great.
Okay,
thanks a lot, Robert. Thanks for coming on. Okay. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys.
And that was a chat with Robert W. Sullivan IV. Sully, as he's affectionately known in Grimerica. Of course, you guys that have been around from day one will have probably heard the last couple episodes we had with Robert. They're fun. They're great as well. He's a great interview. But we do have a whack of new listeners, so they're worth going back to check out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I like how he digs into all that symbolism. I mean, that's it's very interesting. And how he's not afraid to approach the collective unconscious. Like, it's not all intentionally put there, something's going on.
Yeah, I like it. Him and Plate should get in touch.
Yeah, and Jay Dyer, they
could all get together and just have a movie Megalomaniac. I don't think that's the right word.
No,
it got away from me there while I was saying it. I just had to say stuff.
No, but I feel like there's a lot of what Plate and Dyer could tie into what Robert does. Like, there's all these things that connect all the different movies together, and the dates and the times and all the weird stuff, like, besides just being
didn't we do Back to the Future in the last one? Back to the 88 and everything was all crazy.
I've been meaning to watch that YouTube video about Back to the Future.
Oh, I just been meaning to watch Back to the Future. Did you just say Black to the Future? Yeah. Jesus Christ. Grimerica.com. Big thanks to Sully for coming back on the show. Buy the book. Check him out on Twitter. Check out grimerica.ca/support, guys. If you can, sign up for a monthly. There's a bunch of different options there. If you're getting some value from the show, you can throw some value back. Winter's coming. It's getting cold. You can sign up for a monthly. Everything from $1 a month to $30 a month. You email me if you want something different or custom. Of course, that's going to get you access to the extra couple episodes a month we got at the Black Budget feed. And it really does help out big time. I think we're still hovering at a little under 1% of conversions, maybe around 1%. I'd like to see that number get to 2.
Yeah, for sure. We couldn't do it without the support.
No, we couldn't.
We couldn't. We wouldn't be going on this long.
No. That's right. Winter's coming. Support the show if you can. Of course, if you can't afford to support the show monetarily, there's a ton of different ways just by going to the show notes.
Review it.
Review the show. You can do that. The big one is iTunes. Of course, if you can find someplace else to review the show, do it. I think you can do it on Stitcher, maybe some other places. I'm not sure. Share the show. That's a big one. We have no marketing and no money for marketing. So we just need you guys to tell people about the show, and maybe they'll listen. And sign people up for the newsletter. That's another great way. Sign them up for the newsletter. Boom, they get told about the show. They don't even know who signed them up. And Spamgram. That's the last one. Well, there's a bunch of other stuff. SpeakPipe and all that. Jeez.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of voicemails, so check out speakpipe.com/Grimerica. That's in the show notes too. It's all in the show notes.
And you should probably email me back up that you'd left a voicemail, because I don't think Darren checks them anyways.
No, come off it. I get that. I check those. Yeah. I just scan over yours. Yeah, I get an email. Yeah, I get an email whenever I get one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Then I save them for the show.
I should test that out.
Do it up.
Okay.
All right, guys. I think that's about it. That about wraps it up. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
I sent for you, but you never came around. So look at the shape that I'm in now, for crying out loud. You left me standing in the freezing cold. Now my tattered umbrella doubles as a lightning rod for lightning bolts. Woo! If I could abracadabra, I'd reach out and grab you and take you home with me. And baby girl, you be my queen. Woo! Is this heaven? Have I found you? Or is this purgatory, a never-ending story? And the confusion with the illusion, and the confusion with the illusions, and the confusion with the illusions. Da 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 da. Is this heaven? Have I found you? Or is this purgatory, a never-ending story? And the confusion with the illusion, and the confusion with the illusion, and the confusion with the illusions. Da 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 da. You left me standing in the freezing cold, and now my tattered umbrella doubles as a lightning rod for lightning bolts. Woo! If I could abracadabra, I'd reach out and grab you, take you home with me. Baby girl, you be my queen. Woo! If I could abracadabra, I'd reach out and grab you, take you home with me. Baby girl, you be my queen. Baby girl, you would be my queen. Baby girl, you be my queen. Baby girl, you would be my queen. Hablando los azules, to my blue shoelace.
I want a good score for my synchronicity. If Graham reads it out, then Darren might give it to me. Hey, don't you please read it low, yeah.
If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
The blah blah.
Sending out good vibes. Good vibes. Good vibes. Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that. 108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that. 108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
Grimerica /support.